I am here at the Fort Wayne Firefighters Museum, located off of Washington and Webster in downtown. This museum has been around for 50 years, putting on display artifacts and documenting the evolution of the firefighters here around the city. This is a journey, and I'm taking you on the inside. Let's do it.
Fashion, food, and fun. You're watching Living Local 15 with your host, Jessica Williams.
And joining me now is the Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Firefighters Museum and also a captain of the Firefighter Department, Dennis Gear. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
Going good.
Good. Okay, so we are in this museum. This museum is celebrating 50 years.
Yes, it
this year. How
Yes.
exciting, and congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
And kind of give us an overview of what you all have to offer in case someone hasn't heard of it.
Well, we're basically a museum. We house a lot of artifacts from the past of the Fort Wayne Fire Department, which started in 1839. So we have some equipment here that goes all the way back to 1860s,
Wow.
through the 1890s into the 1900s. So you can see how we progressed as a fire department here in Fort Wayne.
Right, and it's really cool. I mean, just kind of looking around immediately, I noticed how exposed the trucks were.
Yes.
And how riding along and really doing your job had to have been a bit harder with the type of equipment and how things have evolved over the years.
Well, they have, and they've really evolved over the years. We've got in the back the hand pumpers that were actually pushed to the fire by the firemen,
Wow.
up to the horse-drawn equipment, and then to the motorized, and even the motorized weren't enclosed. The firemen sat with no roof over them on the front, and they stood on the back bumper to get to the fire. So we've come quite a long way.
Right, yeah, and I think about even the ladders, right? Now they're attached to the
Yes.
truck. Before, did they have to like pull it out and run with?
Well, they had the
individual?
ground ladders back
Okay.
then, but even during the horse-drawn era, there were horse-drawn ladder trucks that were 100-foot ladder trucks, just like we have today.
Wow. Yeah, and so we are standing here at an old firehouse, correct?
Yes.
So tell me just a little bit about this place.
Well, the building, the east side of it, the first two bays over there were originally built in 1893. We were using horse-drawn equipment at the time, so there were 4 horses in here with the 2 wagons that were here.
Wow.
This side was added in 1907, which added more equipment, and there were 8 more horses on this side. So at its peak, there were 12 horses in here.
Wow.
It evolved through the years. By 1920, it was all motorized. And it was an active station until 1972, when the station at Main and Lafayette was built. This was too close to it, so they closed it, and then we took it over in '74 and created the museum.
Yeah, and so how many different fire stations are there around town?
Fort Wayne right now has 18 stations.
Okay.
And they're numbered 1 through 19, only because when this became the museum, we were station number 3 at the time.
Yes.
They retired the number, and we're still station 3. So we have 18 stations in Fort Wayne.
Okay, that's so awesome. And so as people come and look around, what do you think is some of the most interesting things that people would be shocked to learn about?
Well, what they respond the most to is the hand pumpers that were pushed to the fire by the firemen, and then the horse-drawn equipment. The motorized stuff is kind of, they can kind of tell what they are because they're similar to the trucks today.
Yeah.
But the old stuff is what they find most interesting.
Yeah, and how do you decide what goes into the museum? I mean, I'm sure you collect a lot over the years.
Yes.
But what is an artifact?
If it was used by the Fort Wayne Fire Department, we will put it on display. Even
Okay.
if we could get a brand new truck, we would put it on display. Of course, we don't have the room for it, and then they wouldn't fit inside the bays. But
Yeah.
anything Fort Wayne or even fire related, we have quite a few displays down here that talk about fire history in general, not
Yeah.
just in Fort Wayne.
Okay, well, I would love to take a tour and kind of learn some history.
Sure.
Let's do it.
We can do that.
Okay, so Dennis, this room is the stall, the barn.
The horse stalls, yes.
Yes, that's awesome. And so what are we looking at here?
This is an original fire engine. This is a hand pumper that was pushed to the fire by the firemen, pushed and pulled, and then it was hand operated to get the water through the hoses.
Yeah, okay, so this is like the original method of putting out a fire.
Yes, after the bucket brigades, then this was the original fire pumps.
That is crazy. So it was also, men were literally like running the truck to the fire.
Pulling it and pushing it to the fire.
Can you give me a little demonstration?
Well, they were on the side. I can't pull this up, but it was basically they were pushing it and pulling it.
So they were just running like chit.
Yep.
And then you say that this is actually a brake as well.
It's called a brake, but there's one on each side. When they got to the fire and when they were pumping the water, they got on each side and hand pumped this to run the piston pump that pushed the water through.
Okay, and then the water came up through this?
That was flipped down into the water supply, and it came through the hose into this, and then the hose from the hand cart would be hooked to the front, and that would go to the fire.
That would go to the fire, wow. So fires were put out from a distance.
Not much of a different distance, but yes, from the outside.
Okay.
They didn't have the fire gear and the equipment we have today to go into a fire, so they literally just, and a lot of times if the building was fully involved, they were spraying water on the buildings around it to save them, and then tearing down the building with their pike poles and axes to make it like a controlled trash fire.
And then that's how they sprayed it out. Wow. Okay, so this was the first way.
Yes.
And you say this went on through about
into the 1860s.
1860s, okay. Yes. And then next
is horse-drawn, steam-powered equipment.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, let's check that out next.
Have an idea for the show? Want to find out how you can be a guest? Contact us at livinglocal15@wayne.com.
Okay, Dennis, so you showed me from the 1840s to the 1860s with that stop brake.
Yep.
Next, what's the next technology?
Well, in the 1860s, we started getting horse-drawn, steam-powered fire engines like this one here.
Okay.
And this was one of the biggest ones they made at the time. We had one just like this here at this station. And instead of the firemen pumping the water, there was a fire under the water tank, turned the water to steam, and the steam was forced through and actually turned the pump. So that wasn't done by manpower. And to get it to the fire, it was pulled by horses.
Okay, and you were saying that there was someone that rode on the back,
yes,
and someone that drove it, right? And so through this new technology, were they able to have more hoses connected, or is it just still that one hose coming out of the truck?
They could hook more hoses to the steamers, and then there would be a second wagon that carried all the hose and the firefighters to the fire. So you would have a wagon and the steamer responding together to a fire.
Yes, and it's interesting that the chief goes separately to the fire, and you were saying that they were also pulled by a horse as well.
Yes, they had their own horse-drawn buggies that took them to the fire. And because of the steamer only needing 2 men to actually operate it as opposed to 20 to 40 men for the hand pumper, this allowed cities to start creating paid fire departments because they didn't have to pay as many men. And Cincinnati, Ohio actually had the first steamer and the first paid department in the country.
Really? Yeah. And so before, was firefighters volunteers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, all volunteers.
So that's how it started. And what's interesting is the progression of danger that I feel that firefighters are put in, because before, when you were saying about the pump, they were really putting out the fire from a distance.
Yes.
Right? So they could wear uniforms but not protection gear. Yeah. And so when did the entry point start? Like, when did firefighters have to start really risking their lives?
More into the 20th century, probably the 1930s, they were actually making entry. Not quite like we do today.
Yeah.
The air packs that helped them breathe didn't come around until the mid-1960s.
Okay.
So that's when it really came into effect with the air packs and the better fire gear that we were wearing.
Okay. And speaking of transitioning into the 1900s, this truck right here is one that was from 1927?
Yes. Here in Fort Wayne, we started transitioning to motorized equipment in 1912, and it took until 1920 to completely fill out the fleet. The last horse-drawn run was in 1920.
Wow.
And then ever since then, we had motorized. And again, the motorized not only replaced the steam and the horses, but also the hose wagons, because now it's an all-in-one vehicle. The hose wagon was on the back.
Wow. And so how did the firefighters get there? Were they riding up along the side?
There would probably be
back.
4 of them standing on the back bumper, and then the driver and the officer were in the front.
And I see now there are ladders attached to this. There's more pumps and more equipment now. I see the axes. Wow. That really is the progression. Okay, so this is technically one of the first type of motor vehicles?
Yes. Very, very early motorized vehicle,
Okay. What's next?
What's next? Okay.
All right, Dennis, the infamous fire pole.
Yep.
Yeah, and so this is the original one that was here at the station?
The original one, yes. The bedroom was upstairs, and this was where they came down at night to get on the trucks quickly. They slid the pole.
Oh, wow. So the bedrooms were upstairs. So they were staying, I guess, those who were on duty?
Yeah, our department has transitioned that way too. When we first went full-time paid in 1882, the firemen worked 29 out of 30 days. They got about an hour and a half off a day to go home and take care of what they needed to at home, but they basically lived here. That reduced down in 1919 to 9 days on, 1 day off, and then in 1920 they doubled the size of the department, created 2 shifts, then they worked 24 on, 24 off.
That's a lot of work. You know, that is
a lot of hours.
A lot of hours. And so does this pole still work?
Yes.
Oh, really?
It doesn't do anything. You just slide down it.
Do you want to
now
give
we've
us
got
an
it
example?
closed because the insurance companies won't let us use them anymore.
Wow.
And that's the trend for all fire stations now. It used to be all our stations had poles. Now only one downtown. All the rest are built 1 story so that nobody gets hurt on sliding down the pole.
Oh, I still thought firefighters slid down poles.
No, it's just one place in town, that's it.
Okay, that is awesome. So you have been a firefighter for 45
around shortly,
years?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm sure you have experience doing that.
Yes.
Is it super scary? What is that experience
No, it's
like?
not. It's actually fun.
It's fun?
I mean, it's, you at the top, you don't realize you're dropping that far, and you just grab it and slide down.
Grab it and slide. Okay. Any injuries?
I've never had any, but there have been injuries, which is why they're starting to get rid of the fire poles.
Yeah, especially if you're just waking up a little disoriented, running and jumping. All right, let's keep looking.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are on the other side of the first floor, and it has more motorized vehicles, but you said there's something special about this area.
Yeah, all the 3 trucks that are over here are unique to Fort Wayne because they were actually built by our shop mechanics. They built the fire trucks. The city purchased the chassis from International Harvester that had a plant here in town, and the mechanics built the rest of them. So they're unique that way, and it also made them half the cost rather than buying custom fire trucks.
Yeah, that's awesome. Made it really cost effective. And also, what is this Cadillac ambulance? What was that used for?
What it was used for was an ambulance.
Yeah.
And that's a 1953 Cadillac, was used in Wayne Township, which is the township out by the International Airport. And that was back before modern EMS even existed. When they came to get you in one of those, they threw you in the back, got you to the hospital as fast as they could. There was no medical treatment being done. Modern day EMS didn't really come to the forefront until 1973, 1976. And that's when the EMTs and paramedics began.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. We walk over here. I think it's so fascinating that this is how they were kind of transported. So, because it really doesn't make a whole lot of room, I guess, for a doctor and medical staff.
Yeah, no, there's no
it.
room in the back. You could have had one person back there, a family member or a firefighter, but they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
In fact, when modern day EMS started, the first paramedic group that was that tested that the pattern was used to make all future, which was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The doctor who started that redesigned the ambulances, and that's what they use today, that design, as opposed to this old design.
Right, because you're saying this was just for transport.
Yes.
They couldn't do anything anyway.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah.
And then one thing I love with this truck, you said that it's used for transportation for funerals if a firefighter was to pass away in the city.
Yes, a retired firefighter or an active who dies off duty. A line of duty death would be on their regular vehicle, but for retirees, when they pass, they can choose to have this take them to the cemetery, and we call it our last ride, because it would be their last ride.
And then you have a...
We put their names in the back, everybody we take away, yes.
Yeah, that's a nice way to memorialize them.
Follow us on social media at Living Local 15.
So now we are in the alarm room.
Yes.
And I see so much history. So can you kind of walk us through what this room really indicates?
It indicates this is how we received the alarms and knew where to go, when to go. And it originally started out with the street corner boxes, which were invented in 1852, so they've been around for a long time also. They're actually patterned after the telegraph system.
Okay.
A doctor in Boston saw the telegraph and thought we could do something to alert the fire department, and him, an electrical engineer, came up with these boxes.
Okay, and so these set at each corner of the street?
Most street corners had a box.
And so people would come up and they would pull this down after, if they had a fire, of course, and then they would pull down this,
Yes,
correct?
you can push it down.
Okay.
It's not going to do anything. Okay, just like that.
I'm like, oh no.
And then they would have to stay here and wait, because the firemen were going to come to the box, not to, if you ran back to your house, they wouldn't know where the fire was.
Wow,
So somebody
yeah.
had to stay here.
Okay, and then so what is this process like?
Well, when you pulled that lever, it actually would get this turning, and there's a bar and a wheel with teeth on it in there, and every time that bar moves, it would ring the gong in the station, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, two teeth, and that's the number of the box, so you go ahead and pull it.
Yeah.
So when you trip it, every time you see that bar move is when the bell in the station would ring. So you'd have 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
Okay, so 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
So 1, 3, 2 is the number of the box. 1, 3, 2.
Oh, so
they would then go over to their desk and look up the card that had that number on it.
because it would ring.
It would ring on the bell,
it would ring on the big
on
bell.
the wall, and then they would find that card with 132. It would tell them what street corner it was on and who went on
And
the.
so, and you're saying that these are all the different boxes in the city?
Yes, that's all the
Oh
boxes
my
that were in the
goodness.
city.
Okay, so they had to move, the dispatch person had to move really quickly to get through, and then once they learned the number, what was next?
Well, that initially it went directly into the stations, and this was in the station. They would see where it was and they'd go.
Okay.
When dispatchers came along, then the boxes were received on this slate board back here, and each one of these banks had a group of boxes. So if that number was in this bank, these lights would ring, this bell would ring, this would light up. They'd still count the number of rings, and then go over to their sending unit and put that number in, and that's what they would send out to the stations.
And so how long was this method used, and is this the only way that a fire was detected?
In the early 1850s through the 1900s, yes, it was, unless you ran down to a fire station. And they were here in Fort Wayne until 1990. That's when they started pulling them out, because by that time, the only time they were pulled was false alarms, and they were being abused by that time. And within about 4 years, they were all gone. So there are no more boxes in Fort Wayne.
And so now I guess then in the 1990s, how were people reporting their homes?
Telephone.
Okay.
Dispatching was a little different. Everybody had phones, and then the cell phones started coming in. And now with cell phones, everything is reported so much faster. but it's technology.
Yeah, and so now you say that technology has evolved in a way where it's only a computer.
Everything is computerized
dispatch.
now.
Yeah. Wow. And then let's talk about over here and some of the technology that's on this wall.
Well, this is basically the unit that replaced the slate boards that were in dispatch. So this was a newer version of that. And then this one was used at GE Corporation in town here. The city had one just like it. The city scrapped it, the one we had. But when GE took theirs out of service, they found out it was the only one of its kind left, and the Smithsonian Institute wanted this, but they gave it to us.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. And then what is this right here?
This is what's called a repeater system. It's basically an amplifier. As the city grew and the boxes were out farther, the signal would come into this and then be boosted up to go out to the stations.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow. And then over here, these are
Same,
batteries.
it's all part of the same,
It's all
same
the
thing,
same.
yes.
Wow, so this has been so interesting learning more. I mean, I learned so much about how firefighters work and how the equipment has evolved over the years. So thank you so much, Dennis, for taking me on a tour. And so if someone is interested in coming and exploring this place, just like I did today, how should they go about finding out your hours and how to get tickets?
Well, they can look on our website, fortwaynefiremuseum.com, or our Facebook page, same thing. But we're open weekdays, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday from 10 to 4, Saturdays 10 to 3. We're only closed Wednesdays and Sunday.
Yeah.
And then cost to get in is $6 for adults, kids are $5, seniors are $5, and 2 and under is free.
Okay, well, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This experience was so cool, so I highly recommend coming out and exploring this history right here in the city. If you want more information about the Fort Wayne Firefighters Museum, we'll have their website listed below, and we'll be right back.
Living Local 15, proudly driven by the Kelly Automotive Group. Go to the Living Local 15 page on WANE.com for recipes from the show, to watch a segment again, and to get information on products and services featured on Living Local 15.